Hello, everyone. Welcome to our podcast, The Difference is Life, where we are talking about all things pregnancy center, all things behind the scenes, stories. I am so excited today to be joined by Kristen Barnett, who is the Director of Operations and Marketing here at the Pregnancy Centers. We've been receiving a lot of questions about the 6-week ban here in Florida and how that has affected our centers, how it's affected our staff. And so this episode is a little impromptu. But we thought it'd be fun to just discuss some statistics and how it's affected our centers, how it's affected our staff. And I think some people think that our work is kind of done if we're pro-life, but it's kind of the opposite of that. So we're just going to dive in and discuss. So I'm very excited to be joined by Kristen, and let's get started. So, Kristen, before we dive in to all things 6-week ban, would you mind just introducing yourself and your role here at the centers and how you got started and all those fun things?
Sure. My name is Kristen Barnett, and I have been at the centers for 10 years. January was my 10-year anniversary, which is kind of crazy because I love my job. I love what I do. But I've had lots of different jobs throughout the center. So I used to, when I was hired, I started in Oviedo as a director, and I ran that center for, I guess, about 5 years. And then when we decided to close Oviedo, we had opened up Winter Park, and I transitioned into director of marketing. So I handled all the marketing for both centers at that time. And then we had I don't know if you've ever worked at a nonprofit, which you do now. Everybody wears different hats. You wear hats, you change all the time. So somebody in client services was moving, and they had a spot in Sanford, and I was like, you know what, I can do marketing and I can fill that in until somebody comes off of maternity leave. It was just kind of like we're moving puzzle pieces around. So I did that for 6 to 8 months, and then I transitioned from that into the director of operations and marketing. So I basically handle the day-to-day at each center, help the staff, whatever they need. Basically, I'm there for whatever they need and just help with implementation of different programs and different client care things that go along with that. And marketing.
And marketing.
Yeah. And marketing.
She basically wears every hat, like she said, of just if any troubleshooting or anything, we can always look to her, and working on our website and emails and everything like that. So all things marketing.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, it's such an easy job because we have such an amazing staff and such an amazing team that I can't say enough good things about. And I know that's not what we're here to talk about, but I do want to give a shout out to the staff, to Andrea as the executive director, to the board members. It really is just such a healthy nonprofit because we're up against really hard stuff, right? The public misunderstands what we do, and then there's just a general, like, you know, my body, my choice, my right, that kind of thing that we're kind of up against, that we're not trying to change, you know, we're not out there just trying to change everyone's mind. We just really want to help women. And we, you know, in the process, we save babies because we save women. So that's what we're focused on. So, but you get people who are opposition and want to fight you on that. So I'm really glad that God has just really blessed this ministry with such a tight-knit, like-minded group of men and women who work so well together. So it makes my job very easy.
That's so good. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Love to work here. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for introducing yourself. Let's just jump into the 6-week ban. So what exactly is the 6-week ban, and what does that mean for Florida?
Sure. Okay. So Roe v. Wade, I'm cheating because I'm using my notes. But so when Roe v. Wade overturned, basically all that did was each state can now decide. So basically Roe v. It's not like the federal Supreme Court. They're just like, no opinion on abortion. The states can decide. So when that happened on June 24th. So July 1st, like a week later, is when the Florida 15-week abortion ban took effect. And that's because it was on the books, but they couldn't enforce it because of the Roe v. Wade. And so because the federal changed, then the state got to say, this is what we want. the 15 week. And then April of 2023, Florida signs the 6-week ban into law. And then May 1st is when it went into effect, and it took effect. So basically we went from, in Florida, in the span of just over a year, just over 2 years, I guess, 18 months, whatever. We went from 24 weeks. You could have an abortion for up to 24 weeks for any reason, down to 15 weeks. Keeping in mind that the 24 week, you could have it after 24 weeks, but there were regulations. Mm-hmm. Their life of the mother, fetal abnormality, that kind of stuff. But when the 6-week ban, it went from there all the way down to 6 weeks. So from 24 to 6 weeks. Also keeping in mind that the general public doesn't pay any attention to that. They don't know the laws. If I asked you, what are your laws on carrying a firearm in the state of Florida, do you know that? If you're not carrying a firearm, you don't pay any attention. Mm-hmm. Generally, mm-hmm. right? So women who find themselves in an unplanned pregnancy, that's when it matters. They're not, before that, understanding what the law is. So it is absolute shock when, unless they've watched the news or read something or are super caught up on all the laws and everything that goes along with that, it's just like all of a sudden, oh, there's a 6-week ban. Mm-hmm. And so there's all this pressure and panic that is placed on a client. But that's a little bit, I kind of moved on to what we were talking about. But, we went from 24 weeks, which is very far along. Mm-hmm. That is almost wide open. Not wide open, but all the way down to 6 weeks. So it has caused, and it went very fast. Mm-hmm. So it has caused a lot of unintended consequences. While we are super happy because less abortions are happening because of that ban.
Hmm. And so, like you said, the gap used to be further wide open, and now it's very small as to when you can get an abortion legally here in Florida. So, like you said, there are some unintended consequences. So what would you say some of those are, or how does that affect our staff here at the centers?
That's a really good question. The beautiful thing that we had before was time. She had time to really sit with her decision, and time to be discipled, right? To even come back more than once. Mm-hmm. It was a beautiful thing to be like, listen, you have so much time to decide what you want to do. You had just found out it is shock. It is, trauma. It is all the things. And when you have time to think about it and process it, you're more in your sound mind. You're more prepared. So that is something that we've come up against. Another thing is that we are now dealing with women who sometimes have already taken something to end the pregnancy, or they think they've taken something, because it's illegal in the state of Florida to receive the abortion medication in the mail. But who's regulating that? Mm-hmm. Because we have lots of clients that come in and tell us, well, somebody from Jamaica sent me some. Somebody from insert country sent me some. Somebody from another state. And there's no medical oversight. So you're dealing with all this fallout from the panic. And it's like, if they can't get what they want, they will find another avenue. And so it's hard. And then you have women who have taken it and been like, oh, I should have thought about this longer. I didn't want to do that. And then that's hard. So the staff is definitely, and the advocates especially, are dealing with harder conversations. Mm-hmm. It was hard before. This is just an extra caveat, an extra facet of what we're dealing with now. And I mean, you sit in counseling rooms too. In case you didn't know, Evie also does client services. So she also counsels. She's not just our podcast maven. But so you've seen things as well, I'm sure.
Yeah, I would say working here has made it pretty evident that when you're in a crisis situation, it's pretty common knowledge that your first initial reaction or your first initial decision is not really the best. And that knee-jerk reaction kind of decision making is just not the greatest. I mean, it applies to really any sort of crisis situation that you're in. You just got in an accident, you just got broken up with, whatever. You're not necessarily making the best decisions then. And so that's why I love that we're a place that fully informs and educates women on all their options before they make that decision. However, I will say it's a lot harder when you have such a small window to meet with these women, because it might be the only time that we're able to sit down with them before they feel like they have to make a decision. So it's been pretty difficult.
I mean, they are really backed into a corner now. Before they felt backed into a corner, and we helped them see the reality of, you have so much time. Like, this is day one, and you have until 24 weeks to make this decision, or 15 weeks. I mean, it was only 15 weeks for just a hot minute, but you had so much time, and now we don't. And that is not to say that the 6-week ban isn't good. Of course it's good. It is saving lives. There's just some unintended consequences. I'm sure the abortion clinics are feeling it, just like we are, because it just changed the landscape of abortion. Another way that it it just changed how our staff handles it. I want to pull up some statistics, because our sonographers, and I'm sure at some point you'll interview somebody in our medical team. But statistically, so if I look at sonograms that we have done in 2021. So in 2021, 24-week limit, 30% of our ultrasounds, so of all the ultrasounds we did in an entire year, 30% of them were in the 8 to 10 week window. As opposed to now, if they're in the 8 to 10 week window, they're not coming to see us. It's past the 6 weeks. So now what we're seeing this year alone, so far, only 20%. So it's gone down from 8 to 11 weeks, or 8 to 10 weeks. It's gone way down. But what's really interesting, right now, we're seeing, so in 2025, so far, we have 75% of our ultrasounds that our sonographers are performing are in the 4 to 7 week window. Okay? 4 to 7 weeks. And if you don't know anything about ultrasounds, what that tells you is not a lot, because it's very small. Not that there's not anything there. It's just our technology, medical technology, right? You can't really zoom in and see exactly what's happening. So does the sonogram help the client? Yes. And sometimes it produces a panic of, oh, is it ectopic? Am I miscarrying? What? And we don't know those things, right? And so we always ask them to seek further medical attention. So that causes a lot, and that's 75% of our ultrasounds. So back in 2021, 4 to 7 weeks was less than 50%. It was like 48%. I mean, I could do the math. So in 2021, 4 to 7 weeks, we were doing about 45% of our total ultrasounds were in that window. Now it's 75%. So our sonographers are having harder ultrasounds because it is more difficult to find something smaller. It's also a client who is looking for, how far along am I? How far along am I? I just need to know how far along I am, so that she can decide, like, am I too far along to get an abortion? Can I still get an abortion? And that it's just hard. It's emotionally taxing. It's physically taxing on the sonographers. It's just hard. And they don't get to, it's almost like if your job is to, if you're a diamond miner, or if your job is to find treasure, and you went from finding treasure 50% of the time to now it's less than 25%. Gosh, it's hard. It's hard. And that's a really bad analogy. Feel free to cut that out or leave it in, that I'm also saying cut it out. But it's hard on the sonographers, right? Like it's not, and a lot of them have been doing sonograms for years. So it's like their landscape has changed from when they started to where they are now. So it's definitely harder on the staff, and it is infinitely harder on the client. It's infinitely harder on her. And so the question we have to ask ourselves is, how can we help her?
Yeah.
Because that's the goal.
Yeah.
It's not to manipulate. It's not to get her to make a different decision. It is to minister to her and to educate and to give her care in the moment of chaos and unknown and this timeline crunch that she's under.
Yeah. And if our listeners don't know, here at the Pregnancy Center, we perform limited ultrasounds. So we're looking for, the sonographers are looking for three things. They're looking for the location of the pregnancy, viability of the pregnancy, and how far along the client is. So our sonographers, in order to see all three things, love preferably 7 weeks, because that's when it's most clear. However, like you said, because we've been doing earlier and earlier, sometimes you're not able to see, the sonographer is not able to see what she's looking for. And so on top of the already stress of having to make a decision as soon as possible, she might be thinking, what if it's ectopic? What if it's a miscarriage? What if something's wrong? Right, exactly. And so that's even more challenging and difficult. And watching the sonographer have to explain that or just go through that is just really difficult. But then on the flip side of it, if a client does come in, abortion determined at 5 weeks, we either could see everything, the sonographer could see everything that she's looking for, and the client could leave thinking, wow, there is a child inside of me. I shouldn't make this decision. Or she could come in at 5 weeks. The sonographer is not able to see what she's looking for because she's too early to see anything. And then the client leaves thinking, okay, since there's nothing in there, then it doesn't matter if I go through with this abortion. So that's so tricky of like, I don't know. That's a tricky line that the sonographer is just, and we're all just having to walk through together.
I mean, and it's been like this for years, but it's never been like this.
Like this, yeah.
In 10 years, it's just how we all go, well, how do we reach her? Really, like in any nonprofit, in any business, in any customer service, you want to give the client what she wants. You want to give the client what she's looking for. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we can't do that. And we've never been able, like if they ask, do you provide abortions? Of course we're honest.
Yeah.
We absolutely, no, we don't. But here's what we can offer you. Mm-hmm. We don't want to mislead ever, ever manipulate. But sometimes, can you give me an ultrasound? Maybe. Like, we want you to talk to the sonographer, talk to our medical professionals so that you understand. And then if at the end of talking with that medical professional, she still is like, no, I want an ultrasound, of course, they'll give her one. But having the knowledge that they have, they know it'd be so much better if you would just wait until 5 weeks, 2 days, or, so you're still under the window, but it's hard because you want to give the client what she wants, but you also have so much knowledge about, and the sonographers have so much knowledge. Our medical team is great. And they're so good with clients and trying to help them understand, like, we do have really good sonogram machines. We do. They're great. They're new, top of the line. The hospital is going to see the same thing as us. It's not like we have janky materials, or machines. It's just so hard to get her in that fight, flight, freeze, fawn brain when she's panicked to your reasoning, your logic is turned off for everybody. And so it's hard to break through that to get her to see, like, if you just wait a little bit and come back. So it's always a dance. It's always a different...
Yeah.
And you have to respect her decisions. Absolutely. 100%. She is her own person, and we want to support her.
Yeah. I do want to emphasize to our listeners that we are talking about the consequences of a 6-week ban, but ultimately we do agree with the 6-week ban, and we agree just because ultimately lives are being saved and less abortions are happening in the state of Florida. I've actually personally witnessed a couple of clients who you're sitting there and they don't know the law. They don't know about the ban. And so sometimes we'll say it or mention it because, I mean, it is public knowledge. It is a law. Just like, hey, did you know? Just in case you didn't know. And sometimes they'll sit there and be like, oh, okay, well, then that makes my decision easier, and you're like, whoa, okay. Like, there are some, like, ultimately is saving lives. We even had a client come in last week, a 16-year-old who was 20 weeks pregnant, hadn't told her parents. They brought her in, kind of freaking out. And so we sat there with her, and she had no idea what the law was. And she was like, oh, okay, well, that makes my decision easier. And we were like, okay. And so I think for some clients, having that firm no or that firm...
This isn't an option.
Yeah,
right?
This isn't an option for them to jump to the next thing and be like, okay, well, that makes my decision easier, But then we have other clients who are like, where do I need to travel to, or how far do I need to get to in order to have this abortion?
We do have clients who do the mail thing,
order pills.
Order pills. We've seen that. And also we've seen, which this is also just an interesting surge of clients that we've gotten who are interested in our post-abortion healing program. And usually when we first started it, it was, women who were 20 years post-abortive or 5-7 years post-abortive. We're getting women who are weeks out from having an abortion, who are a couple months out from having an abortion. And it's just a different landscape. They have different needs than someone who has wrestled with something for 20 years. And so those advocates and that staff has also had to go, okay, how do we pivot? How do we give them the best care? And I think when we as a general population, when we make a permanent decision based on temporary circumstances, regret is inevitable. What if is inevitable. So how do we help with that? I mean, there's a lot of different grief shares out there. There are a lot of good counseling centers and things out there, but specifically towards abortion, it is a very important specialized healing and specialized therapy that is definitely needed. So we've seen a surge in that of women with the window from when they had their abortion to when they're seeking healing is very small.
Yes. And there's kind of these lies circulating on the internet or just like the general public knowledge of like, when you have an abortion, you're not going to have any effects, or once you do it, it's kind of said and done. You move on with your life.
It's safe like Tylenol.
Yes.
There's nothing to worry about.
Right. Yeah. Like it's taking Tylenol. And so we even will be talking through women about their options, and we'll mention abortion and talk about, the emotional effects they could have, mental and physical. And they kind of just sit there and be like, no, like I'll be fine. Like my partner will be there, whatever. But then you sit with the women, like we had a client who came in just last week and she sat there and just cried and was talking to one of our advocates and was like, I have never addressed the effect that my previous abortion has had on me. And it's just heartbreaking. And, while I am so grateful that we do offer post-abortion classes, I wish that no one ever joined it.
I wish we didn't have to have it,
I
right?
wish that no one ever needed it. And but I am so grateful that we have it, because I think that being pushed into a corner or having such a short amount of time, these women just are making decisions because they weren't informed, because they weren't educated, because it was just a knee-jerk reaction. And so while we do stand with the 6-week ban, there just are these consequences that are newer and we're walking through for the first time, as of recent. And so it's just a challenge to our centers and to our staff and to our clients and advocates. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we do stand with it and agree with it. It's just hard and it's heartbreaking for our clients.
Yeah, and we're learning. We're learning how to navigate that. And we're not alone. There are pregnancy centers all over the country who are in states where abortion is completely banned. That they're dealing with the same kind of thing, maybe just a little different. And so that's why it's important that we're like a network and we can talk to each other and give each other help.
Yeah, multiple centers are dealing with the same thing. And this might be news to a lot of our listeners who might have previously thought like, okay, well, Amendment 4 didn't pass, or there's a 6-week ban, so our job is kind of done, while being pro-life, our job is kind of done, less abortions are happening, or less abortion must be happening, etc. However, I would just argue that our fight is not done while being pro-life. Our fight is not over. As long as there is sin in the world, there will be abortions. And until, Jesus comes back and we go to heaven to be with him one day, unfortunately, just this selfishness will just live in this earth. And so we will just constantly be on the front lines fighting the enemy and trying to save these lives. But just know that we more than appreciate your donations, your prayers, your support, because just because there's a 6-week ban, just because Amendment 4 didn't pass, that doesn't mean that our job is any easier. In fact, it could be harder. Now, yes, there are lives being saved because of it, and that's why we are so grateful, but it does make our job challenging of informing and educating in time before they make that decision rapidly. If you don't already support the pregnancy centers, you can go to our website, thedifferenceslife.org, and there's a donate button if you want to give a monetary donation. If you'd like to support us through diapers or wipes or clothes, we have 2 separate Amazon wish lists on that same website, one for our Sanford Center, one for our Winter Park Center, and they are specific to the needs that we have at each center. So we have an amazing volunteer who updates those and lets us know things that she needs. Specifically, we run low on sizes 5, 6, and 7 of diapers. So if you would love to donate diapers, we'd love to have those. But know that any donation, any prayer, any support is just more than helpful. And if you'd like to volunteer at one of our centers, we'd love to have you. Just give us a call and we can get you started. Thank you so much for listening. I'm just so grateful that we were able to have Kristen Barnett here with us today. Go ahead and share this episode with any of your friends or any people who may be interested in learning more about the 6-week ban or how it affects our centers. But we hope you have a great rest of your day, and we hope to see you in our next episode. Bye.